The wind carried the scent of sage and dust across the wide New Mexico plains, where the sun painted gold over the cracked earth. Thomas lived there, alone. He was a quiet man, a farmer who spoke more to his horses than to people. His land was modest, his days predictable. Dawn meant feeding the chickens, dusk meant watching the sky turn red over the horizon. He didn't ask for much, only peace. But peace had its price, silence. And silence had been his only companion for years since the war had taken both his parents and his courage to face the world again. He didn't expect visitors. So, when he found a young Apache woman standing by his corral one morning, barefoot and fierce-eyed, he thought she was a mirage, something the heat had conjured to mock his loneliness. She stood tall, her braids falling over her shoulders, her gaze unwavering. "You are Thomas," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "The one who grows food from dead soil." He blinked, unsure how to respond. I grow what I can." She nodded slowly, as if she had expected that answer. Then she said the words that froze him in place. "I want a child from you." Thomas nearly dropped the pail of water in his hands. I don't think I heard you right," he stammered. "You did," she replied. "You are a good man. I have watched. You do not drink. You do not steal. You feed the hungry bird that can no longer fly. I need a child with a heart like yours." He looked at her, bewildered. "Why me? You don't even know me." "I know enough," she said, crossing her arms. "My people are dying. The land is taken, our homes burned, our men gone to fight. The spirits told me to find a man who knows how to make life grow from nothing. That is you." Her voice didn't tremble. She wasn't begging. She was declaring something sacred. Thomas swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He'd lived 35 years without a woman. Not by choice, but because he never believed anyone would see him as more than a simple farmer with too few words. And now, this woman, strong, proud, beautiful, was asking something so impossible it made his head spin. He turned away, trying to find air. "Ma'am, I think you've mistaken me for someone else." "I don't. I am not mistaken," she interrupted. "You have a good spirit. And the world needs more of those." Days passed, but he couldn't get her out of his mind. She didn't leave. She camped near the river that cut through his land, hunting her own food, tending her own fire. She didn't ask for shelter or help. She simply existed there, as if waiting for the earth to agree with her decision. Thomas tried to ignore her, but his heart was restless. One evening, when the sky turned indigo and the crickets began their song, he walked to her camp. She looked up, her face illuminated by firelight. "Why are you still here?" he asked quietly. "Because I keep my word," she said. "The spirits chose you." He sat across from her, unsure why his hands were trembling. "And if I say no?" She smiled sadly. "Then I will go, and the spirits will be silent." For a long while, neither spoke. The fire crackled between them, throwing sparks into the dark. He studied her face, the strength in her jaw, the wisdom in her eyes. She wasn't asking for love, not even for help. She was asking for legacy, for something to survive her people's fading voice. He finally said, "I don't know if I'm worthy." She reached forward, her fingers brushing his wrist. No man ever is, but the heart knows what the world forgets. Something inside him broke open then. Years of solitude, of fear, of believing he had nothing left to give. That night, they spoke until dawn. She told him stories of her tribe, of how her mother had taught her to read the stars and her father to track storms by scent. He told her of his mother's laughter, the songs his father used to hum while plowing. When the first light of morning touched their faces, she whispered, "The earth remembers kindness. It will remember you too." Weeks turned into months. The woman, whose name he learned was Nita, stayed. She helped him plant corn and mend fences. She sang strange songs to the soil, and somehow the crops grew taller than ever before. He began to smile again, not because he was happy, but because he was alive in ways he hadn't been for years. Then one morning, she placed his hand on her belly and said softly, "The spirits have answered." He stood there, speechless. A warmth spread through him that he couldn't describe. She looked up at him and said, "He will be of two worlds. Yours and mine. Maybe he will teach them to stop fighting." But happiness in the wild plains never lasted long. Soldiers came one afternoon, riding hard, accusing Nita of stealing horses from a nearby ranch. Thomas tried to explain, to plead, but they wouldn't listen. They dragged her away, leaving him beaten in the dirt. He spent 3 days searching for her. When he finally found her near the reservation border, she was weak but alive. He carried her back home in his arms. "Why did you come?" she asked faintly. "Because you're my family now," he said. She smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then promise me one thing. If I don't live, keep the child safe. Let him grow where the wind is kind." Tears burned his eyes. "You'll live. You have to." But by nightfall, the stars had claimed her. Thomas buried her under the tall cottonwood by the river. He carved her name in a piece of oak and placed it by her grave. Then he sat beside it, holding the small blanket she had sewn for their child. Months later, a baby boy was born, dark-haired, bright-eyed, strong as his mother's spirit. Thomas named him Kai, meaning, willow of the earth. Years passed. The boy grew, chasing the wind across the fields, asking endless questions about the stars. Sometimes, when he laughed, Thomas swore he could hear Nita's voice in the echo. One evening, as the sun set behind the mesas, Kai asked, "Papa, where do I come from?" Thomas looked at him, his throat tight. "From love, son. From courage. From a woman who believed the earth could be kind again." Kai nodded thoughtfully, staring at the horizon. "Then I'll make sure it stays kind." Thomas smiled through his tears. That's all she ever wanted. And as the wind whispered through the corn and the river glimmered beneath the stars, he knew, Nita's wish had come true. Her spirit lived on, not just in the child, but in the man who had once been too afraid to live. He had given her what she asked for, a child. But she had given him something greater, a reason to hope again.